we're the caretakers, we're the nurturers, especially when we're doing stuff like this. It's not like we can just have a bad day, come in and do a little data entry, but we are in it.
I gotta make sure that I'm showing that I'm okay. But really there's times where I'm like, I'm not okay. I can't do it. And like, that's my limitation.
And I always share, look, if that's the decision you want to make, own it. Own it.
Today is kind of our official first podcast because last week was our intro. I had what we're about, what we're going to be doing. So today our topic is going to be a little bit about resilience, how to build it, what to do, what it doesn't look like.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. Professor here. Professor's in the house. Excuse me, Miss Nella, lady boss. I do apologize. But how about we start with just what is the definition of resilience?
Resilience is that bounce back. I call it bounce back. Like I always tell my clients, because sometimes the definition is so long and you know what I mean? Like, and they try to like, meet that definition. But I always tell it's bounce back. How you bounce back from life's most distressing challenges, whatever that means, like perhaps divorce, how you bounce back, you have kids that are unruly. How do you bounce back? You go through a financial trauma. How do you bounce back? So it's that bounce back. That's what I call it.
But could it also be kind of like a rollback? Because sometimes I do not feel like bouncing. That's what I'm saying right now. Y'all know I am Tigger. Sometimes I'm rolling. Sometimes I'm crawling. Sometimes I'm like.
But that rollback is where you process on, right? You're like.
But it's still resilient. That's what I'm saying. Because you said sometimes people we get this whole idea of, well, and I'm like I had some people say, well, how do you know where to start? I said, you already have.
Right, absolutely.
You already have.
You recognize through self-awareness that that you need to do something.
Absolutely. And I love your definition because absolutely that's true. Like, and thinking like bounce back is another thing for me is like how you cope and how you move forward as well. So through all those examples that you gave, one thing is to think about how you're coping while you are moving forward, while you're bouncing back. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing that kind of pops in my head as far as resilience.
Yeah. Well, his bounce back is different.
There are times where we're like, okay, we're moving forward, we're bouncing back. Then there's times where like, I really don't want to bounce right.
No.
I just want to sit and dwell and be upset and just like sit in it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. But that's when your girls, that's when your village, your peoples, and they say, hey, that's kind of what happened this week and today. And we're all just like,
today, I'm having like some eye pain. I'm going to the doctor right after this. And like what keeps me moving forward and saying, like I'm showing up is what my overall goals are, so it helps me look ahead. Yes. So I feel like sometimes that helps if you look ahead and you kind of like, all right, you're going to have to hit all these humps and little obstacles and stuff. And you know that. But at the end of the day, like, where am I going to be at the end of that? And so that helps me continue to be resilient. And,
listen, I just got to go there because she's busting up and my eye hurts, but I'm trying to look ahead. She looking at, she like, y'all. That's why she was down to a little sideways because she's like, can I bounce? So that's how I was getting tickled when I
showed up.
And that's the thing. And that's why when we talk about like therapists and we kind of said where sometimes people are like, oh yeah, you're this or you're that. You're not supposed to. And we're like, listen, there's almost a bigger responsibility because we do hold ourselves to a higher standard, just individually and then as therapists, but at the same time, and that's why I said it's beautiful that we three have this because you can't just go to anybody. And even one of my clients, I was working on that with her this week, and she was saying, I really don't know who I can go to with this. And sometimes I am starting to like judge and navigate people in my life differently. And I said that, and you know what? That is also self-aware because you know who you can go to with some things. And it doesn't, there's nothing wrong with those people. But there's a lot of people just can't handle it. There's a lot of people, you don't show me blood. I don't do juices. Oh, I'm a doctor of the mind. No juices. You show me something, I'll be on the floor. Yeah. Can't handle it. That's okay.
You just got to know you got to know your filling stations, right? You got to know where you pour and you got to know where to be poured back into. And not everybody, like say for instance, if you and I are talking and I'm pouring into you, you may not be able to pour into me the way I pour to you. So, and when you don't recognize that, resentment starts to set in and all these other things that are, that could be negative. Just have to know who to pour into and who's going to pour back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but wouldn't you say with that too? And it's funny because I talked about with my college kids. Oh, last week we were doing their attachment styles.
Oh, Lord.
I go, listen, it could change. It's just because they're all looking at me like, really, really, and they're terrified. And I said, but it's funny. I said because a lot of times, because I do a ton of couples work and I love couples work, but that's what I always say too. As I said, sometimes, but here's the thing: when I'm always about love is what you do on purpose. Love finds solutions, and a lot of times it is showing up for your partner, for your kids, for your friends when they cannot match. And that's when you meet them where they are. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, that's kind of where I love having, this here, not just professionally, but personally, because we know when, like you said last week, like, oh yeah, Robin knew. And I was like, so that was going on.
Well, and that reminds me too, like a part of, again, building resilience is being self-aware.
Oh, yes.
Knowing when we are like at a breaking point, knowing when we know, okay, we need to refocus, knowing when we got to reach out to our people to let them know what's going on. Because a lot of times, I know me personally, I hold, because of like, my role here at home, sometimes I hold everything in and I'm like, because I gotta be strong, right? I gotta make sure that I'm showing that I'm okay. But really there's times where I'm like, I'm not okay. And I need to, exactly.
Okay.
And so I have to like tell, like, lean on like my husband or something. I'm like, I gotta check out today. There's been times where I've had to, we go to these networking events and stuff like that. I purchased tickets for these things. And the day of, I'm like so burnt out. I'm like, I can't go. I can't do it. And like, that's my limitation, my limit. So
Yep.
I think an important part of building resilience as well is being very, very self-aware.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Well, and also, resilience is, again, I'm like, did I teach all of this last week? I really think I did. But we were talking about giving yourself permission. Why is it that we cannot, especially strong females, and nothing in our strong males, we love y'all. But we know, we're the caretakers, we're the nurturers, especially when we're doing stuff like this. It's not like we can just have a bad day, come in and do a little data entry. Love our data entry, but we are in it all the time. And I say that a lot to my clients too, because when they're struggling, I go, listen, here's the thing, y'all know me. I'm in it, teaching it, preaching it, living it every single day. And I'm struggling. So, and it's just the same thing. I said, we got to I said, we're human.
Got to.
We are human.
Even as we're talking about last Friday, like last Saturday, because of last Friday, I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything today. And I was home all day. And I gave myself permission to just be. Not be anything to anyone, but just be. And that's how you build resilience too. Just like you said, giving yourself permission.
Well, and that's the thing. One of my professors said to me, "Hey, Babkin," and he's like, "Robin, you're a great human doing. When are you gonna be a human being?" Oh, and I was like,
"What you talking about?"
I said, "Listen, vulnerability is a state I do not plan to break down in. No, sir." 8 hours later, I'm still on the couch. Like, and that's the thing. Sometimes we gotta just be.
Right. And I think some people too, like, struggle with, feeling that they are less than because they haven't bounced back, as you said. Like thinking about clients and stuff, when women go through a divorce, a lot of times, and this is men too, but I know women specifically, we hold a lot of value, sometimes on family and keeping our kids, safe and together. And once we feel like we're going to step out of that role and step out of that, we automatically, it's a lot of self-blame. It's a lot of like, how can I do this? Questioning what we're going to do next. And so a lot of times I feel like moms struggle over like how they are in front of their children and showing that weakness that they think is weak, with our kids. So, and that like projects onto them as well. So I've noticed that a lot, when women are struggling, should I get a divorce? Should I break up my family? Should I do this? It's like, what is that going to do to my kids? But really you got to be raw with your kids sometimes, depending on their age, of course, age appropriate. But like if you have a teen at home and they see you struggling, that's going to show them, okay, mom is a human. She's not just mom. So I think that's one thing too to her people.
Well, and it's funny because, and a couple of things with that, because I know, we do a lot of the family things, and yes, I mean, plug in for the lighthouse, and mediations.
Yeah.
But, and it's so funny because I was like, don't should on yourself. Don't should on, anybody else. And they would go, well, should is a buying word, and I always said, well, what do you want to do? Where do you see this? I said, because here's the thing. And even in that, I'm like, when I asked my students last week, I said, demographic, age-wise, developmentally, who do you believe is the most resilient? And they said, children. I said, absolutely. I said, because they ain't jaded yet. I said, and at the same time, and when you're working with moms and dads, especially in any type of, family systems, and I said, but y'all got to be careful. First of all, I said, your children are watching. I said, but your children are half you and half them. And I said, so you start saying stuff about that partner, that whatever. I said, your child is taking that on.
Yeah, no.
And I said, marriage is a choice. Whoever you date is a choice. But you're always going to be a parent. And I said, but the better you are, the better your children will be. And that is where that resilience comes from, And so it is hard because there is a lot of blame and shame. And, and I said, look, it just didn't work out. And have you ever had this where when you're people, well, it's not like I planned on this. And I go, well, I hope not.
Right.
Why would you plan on getting married about, oh yeah, well, in, 3.7 years, I'm going to go ahead and then take this step out. But it's like sometimes I think people don't even realize what they're saying.
Right.
And one thing I do to try to empower like a mom, like let's say struggling if they should get a divorce or they are going through a divorce is, think about what you're showing your child on a different angle. You're showing your child, you're worried about, okay, I'm breaking up my family, I'm weak or I made some bad decisions. What about showing them how mom pushed through, bounce back?
Yep.
And and showing them that mom can be happy and then is a better person because she's happy and working on herself and knows herself.
Right.
So that's another thing is like, I think sometimes we're so hyper-focused on what our agenda was, but that can change. That changes, and we have to be able to shift with that as well.
No, absolutely. Sorry, sometimes it looks good on paper, And even with that, this last week, I was working with a situation like that, and I said, but here's the thing. When you are authentic and you know that everything you're doing is out of integrity and out of love, and even the love of the person that you are no longer with, because at some point in time, that love was there. And especially if you have children, I said, but because you are continuing to be stable and consistent and solid and stepping back and putting the children first, and no matter what anybody says about you, because none of our business what people say about us, you are creating a space to where that other partner, ex-partner, whatever, is going to be better because they have to be, because it's a privilege, And so, yes, sustain that now. And yes, it hurts. And yes, it's weird. But then even with that, it's like, but why are you surprised? If their behavior is this and you thought they were just, okay, so y'all are going to have a tough situation over here in marriage, but then in divorce, they're just going to be comparable.
That's true.
Yep.
And I'm like,
do what you need to do.
Right. And do what you want to do. And, that's okay. Marriage is like, it's just what it is.
It's no judgment. Because I think, too, a lot of times, we sometimes feel that others are going to judge us for our decisions. And I always share, look, if that's the decision you want to make, own it. Own it. It may not look like mine. It may not look like your sisters who, decided to stay or whatever, or decided to leave, whatever, but let it be yours and own it.
Right. I know. And I love seeing the transformation with women and men, who go through such a change like divorce, and then seeing what type of parent they become, what type of person they become after the fact, and how healed. And that is a part of resilience because you have bounced back, you have moved forward, and you are now like maybe have different goals. So your goal may have been to keep your family intact and raise your children with the, mother or father of your child. But things have changed, things have shifted, people have changed. But if you feel like you've stayed authentic to yourself, that, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know. It's funny. I was looking for some because I have my little sayings and you said something and I was like, gosh, because it's something about decisions and
if that's your decision, own it.
And when I teach, moral and ethics and critical thinking, and that's really what I do with my college kids is say, listen, I said, everybody's very surface. Everybody's very surface. Surface is fear. Surface is fear. I said, behaviors are what we see. I mean, and that, in psychology and everything else. But I said, I want y'all to really look at what's going behind. What has happened? Because people are not just acting out just because they're having a party. That's not what it is. But one of it is, what is it? People judge you on the decisions that you made, but they didn't know the choices that you had. But it really is that, when I do it, like I'll put them in situations to where like I had a few semesters ago, beautiful lady, beautiful girl. She was beautiful. I mean, just and funny and, whatever. And it was like, okay, we were talking about like, where does that line go? And, oh, your boss wants you to do this. And hey, we're going to have this contract. And, the guy's going to be at the hotel and you're beautiful. So you're going to show up and you're going to give him some few drinks. You're going to sign this contract. And, like people in the class are looking at me and she's, whatever. And then, and this is going to happen. You're going to do that. And then I say, because your child is, needing a cancer treatment. You have no health insurance. You don't have anything. So I'm going to give you the $10,000 bonus. And it's so funny to watch. Like one of my athletes was sitting right over there and he's actually doing psychology. And you could see him like at first, like, no. And all of a sudden he was like, oh. And I said, oh, choices. Choices. I said, and that's the thing. Nobody knows your life but you. Your choices are your choices and could have been that they were your choices that you made and you didn't know. And now you're going, oh, I got to make another choice and a better decision to undo that.
Yeah.
But then again, but did you have all the information?
Yeah.
Did you know?
Right.
And now you did.
And sometimes you're right. And sometimes you don't. So you make the decision that's best for you, information that you're given or the situation that you're in.
And then respecting the fact too, like, things will change. Something will, a ball can drop at any time in our lives in general, deaths, cancer, things like that. And it's like, so many things can change a situation. So like you said earlier too, everyone has a choice and what you do with what you're given at that time, it's a choice, whether you're going to go this way or straightforward, but we got to live with that. And that is what we got to, learn to move forward. And I can't tell you this week, actually the last couple weeks, like how many times I just had to sit and think of like in the moments where I'm so stressed out or overwhelmed or whatever's going on. I'm like, God, I have to be thankful. Like, look at everything I do have. I am so thankful. And it's like, we do. Some people, that's cheesy. But at the same time, that's what helps me like refocus and be like, okay, what are my goals? What do I have right now that I can be like, I didn't have this, what I'm in now 5 years ago. And so I feel like a lot of people have struggled with being with gratitude in general, especially when they're going through. Well, the more thankful you are, the less anxious you are about what you don't have. Yeah,
it's true. But you do have to, like you said, gratitude. Because if you are focused on things that you don't have, you are going to be more anxious. It's going to lead to other things. So sometimes I do the same thing. It's like, okay, what do I have? Right? I have my family. They're in good health. I'm able to come to work every day, make decisions that I need to help my clients make or help, I get to share in the fun with, friends or different things like that. So I know there are things that we want, but we can't always like harp on those things, or we just have to be grateful. And so having a heart of gratitude, that's what it is. A heart of gratitude will help you to not focus on the things that you don't have and stress out about those things.
Well, and even with that, it's, and again, it's attitude of gratitude, which is, some of these little things, like you said, sound cheesy, but it really is. And it was funny this morning, because I have to give a shout out to my Zachariah, who's taking his MCATs today, and it's big thing, big deal. And we're all a little like on edge, but it was funny because his little girlfriend, I just this morning before I came in, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so nervous for him. I'm so nervous for him. I said, I said, first and foremost, he is ready. I said, he has overcome. So you talk about resilience, and y'all know my little bit of my life story and my boys and everything. And it was funny because this morning she was saying this, and I said, you know what? I said, Lexi, I said, here's the funny thing. I said, we're talking about this. I said, we're talking about medical school. We're talking about the fact that he's already graduated with a college degree. I said, these are good things to have. These are good problems to have. And she goes, oh my God, you're right. Like to know where he's come from, we've come from. I said, we're looking around going, you worried about medical school? Like,
Yeah.
let's go.
Talk about
Let's
resilience.
go. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Because sometimes we rise from the ashes.
Phoenix, baby. College. Phoenix.
Yeah. And
Ass from the ass.
and that is one thing is if you notice, especially like what we do, we're all like, leaders in some way to a team and to people. And I mean, even you as a professor too, you're like leading, with your students. But when people are not gratitude, it shows.
Yeah.
It shows all over them, like the way they behave, the way they look at things, how they speak. I've noticed that so tremendously that a lot of people, when they lack gratitude in their life, it's like almost like it's hard to be around these people.
Because here's the thing, you can't be selfish and happy at the same time.
I think it affects your life in so many different ways. And just the presence of people who lack gratitude, I think it'll affect them. Like if you're you want a new job, if you're looking for a relationship, if you're looking for, to be a better parent, whatever it is, if you go back at just something simple, like, what are you thankful for? Have some gratitude in your day when you wake up that morning. It can change your perspective and your outlook throughout that day.
I believe that. And sometimes people need help, like getting to that point. And so, I know that you all do as well. And, I teach them that, and it like, just, okay, take a deep breath, reflect on the things that are. And sometimes they don't even realize it until you tell them, and they're like, oh, right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And it does start to change their mindset. They start to have a shift. So yeah, that is very important.
And
very
of
important.
course, Professor here, we're going to go a little bit on the biology side of that too. Literally in your brain. And because that's the thing, sometimes when they're so in their emotions and, that limbic brain, and they're just like feelings. Can I just please go away? I said, all right, but here's the thing. You don't know what to do over here. Your situation still kind of sucks. And, you're in it. But in it, what can you control? I said, literally, your brain is an organ. And the neurotransmitters in there, I said, when you go, let's go CBT, cognitive behavioral, change your thoughts, saying your behaviors. I said, literally, when you start to change the affirmations and the confirmations, I said, your brain seeks out things to prove that you're right.
Absolutely.
It's rewiring.
It's literally rewiring. I said, so even though this is still there and that is still there and that's still, and you might still feel it here, that, I said, just say, you know what? Because then your brain goes, we got to shift.
Yep.
And this is going to do it a lot of times when you don't even realize it.
Because homegirl's feeding us some good stuff.
That's what we're talking about. And then it really is
true. That's like glass half empty, glass half full.
Right.
Still like when I was working.
It's still the same content.
And how I look at it. Yeah. And it reminds me of like when people say like, oh, we got to manifest it. We got to manifest that shit. I'm like, yeah, manifest it, but that's with action.
Right.
So like, it's not manifest. Okay. I want a new job and I want this. It's like, oh, okay, that's great. But what are you going to do to take action?
Right.
You have to put yourself out there. So yeah, like it helps rewiring your brain. Like, okay, I'm going to get a good job. I'm going to get a promotion. I'm going to get this. Okay. Well, let's start working on that. Yeah. So, and that's what people need to understand too about manifesting. Yes, affirmations, manifesting and all that, but it's all with action.
Well, and because here's the thing, I go, you can't sit on a fence for too long because all you're going to do is get metal up in their hair and it's not going to be comfortable. You cannot have 1 foot over here and 1 foot over there. What am I? Meanwhile, you're chafing and you're rubbing and get off the fence. Make a decision. Even if, because now the thing, well, what if? I go, I don't know. Not what if. What if it's fear? When?
But I always say, but what if you do? Well, what if I do? What if I don't make it? But what if you do?
But even without,
well, what if you don't? Just do it.
Well, can we go back to what Nella said something earlier too about, do you think, a lot of people, they just don't know emotion. We don't, like everybody talks about weakness. I'm like, pain is weakness leaving the body. And so if you're hurting, you're still growing and you're still going, let it go, And so, and it's funny when people talk about crying. I don't want to be weak. I said, define weak.
True.
Well, and a lot of times my mom or my dad or my husband or my wife. I said, but wouldn't that be their definition? Because here's the thing. When you cry, literally, again, see, when I hit them with the bio side of it, then they go like, dang, girl, like, yeah, got a little something, something. Your body has to. It is a release. It is, you have to be able to unburden it to handle more.
There is such a stigmatism around therapy. Like, therapy is so taboo. And I'm like, no, therapy is just talking to, like you talk to your girlfriend only. I did share with one client, like, therapist is like talk to your girlfriend, only you're paying me. And she laughed. I was like, oh, thank God. But just true. It's not like, you know, this big grandiose word that you have to like, you know, do something like, it has to be scary because it's not, you know.
Well, and then even, girl, listen, you stepped in it. So I was like, girl, listen, I'm going to lose all respect or street cred if I don't go and follow this, because that was so messy right there. Because when you got to know your lineage, okay? That's what I'm saying. But even this, we talk about just the people, like our village, and honey, did I open the door for you?
Oh, I think you did. Very good.
Wide open, and if I don't take this, then I lost all. Because I was so excited when I'm like leaving education, coding here. I was like, oh, y'all so cute. It's like I got my own little office, and I was like, oh yeah, baby, you know, people come in and they pay to talk to me. Well, they do that with prostitutes too.
Oh my gosh. Someone said that to you?
I was like,
So funny.
I mean, I'm still cute. I saw my own office there. It cracked me up. So now every time I think about that, I go, but you know what? It's great. And it's awesome because it isn't taboo anymore. It is not. Like, y'all know I did this degree way late in life, mid-30s. And there was one thing that it always like was so weird. They showed us some video because I guess it's like, oh, how to do therapy and how to do all this stuff, you know, everything. Watching this thing and on the I'm gonna have to put down a little playbook over here. And the sign said this, and I will never get this because I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
And I seen it. And I'm like, seen that lately too.
I'm going, huh? What? You know, and I'm like, and so because at first I was so taken aback. I was like, what is this? What I really want to be doing? Because I want to be known as that. But then you think about it, and if you actually think about the word, you know, the rapist word, and we talk about it, you know, it's power and control. And so, you know, even in here, when, you know, our big umbrella is do no harm, and I have to really explain that to everybody. I said, because here's the thing. I said, what I do and what we do, you know, applying it everywhere else, I said, that did make me realize. I said, I've always, as an educator and everything else, physical wise, I've always been like, okay, I got to make sure somebody's head's not falling off or make sure arms are here. And, you know, I said, but you all are coming in vulnerable, hurt, emotional, lost. And it is my, you know, I will never, ever take advantage of that. I will never, you know, I take that very, but that's what that always, it comes always in the back of my head of like, I can see why people are scared, you know, instead, because that's what I said. I was like, you don't know anything about me. You're coming here revealing things and you're just expecting me. I mean, sure, we have HIPAA, sure, we have our, you know, 491.2 or whatever, our ethical board and everything else, but these are still crap weasels. Yeah, you know, it doesn't matter.
Not everybody's in this to, you know, like we are, you know.
And there's a lot of people that come in to like get revenge, even educators, all that stuff, you know. Let's get revenge on the people that were mean to us. Oh, watch this. I'm in power now. Over here. Oh, I'm going to take this and I'm in power now. And it's sad. And I'm not saying that because I love everybody, but still there are a lot of people out there that just, their intentions are not always.
Yep. Yeah. I feel like those individuals, especially in our field, that are either in it for the wrong reasons or have like the power, like I'm in a power position. And just like there's so many other positions that are like that too. You know, attorneys, police officers, nurses. And the problem is that those individuals, they are the ones who keep like
the stigma.
They keep the stigma and they give us all like a bad rep in a sense because all they have to do is have that one negative experience with a police officer, with a nurse or whatever. And then that's their now view on just like therapy, like that's their view on therapy. I had one horrible experience or I met this person and they're a hot mess and they're a therapist and they see them out being crazy and partying, getting drunk and crazy. And then they're like, well, she's a therapist. She's a nurse, whatever. And it's like, oh shit, like that's going to put a bad name for all of us. So,
and we talked about today about the philosophy of our, of our practice, and that we really, we were working with a younger lady and stuff. And I said, here's the thing. I said, I'm not any better than you. I'm not any better than you. I said, attitude reflects leadership. I take that in my life. And I said, servant leader, I said, I will never ask anybody to do something or do anything I'm not willing to do. That is where all three of us.
Absolutely. And I personally look at it as, or see it as, a privilege to come in and work with people from all walks of life. Like I'm serious when I say that. I don't take that lightly. Every day I come in thinking, how can I help someone change their life? How can I help someone be better today than they were yesterday? Right? How can I help those that want to become the better version of themselves?
Yeah.
Every day. So you said servitude. We're servants.
And how beautiful is it too? Like our goal is not to keep patients with us forever. I love
Say that.
I mean, it's true, because a lot of people are like, oh, they just make, weekly appointments. And I'm like, okay, no, where are we? Like, now we're at, 2 weeks we're going. Now we're 3 weeks and 4 weeks. And, I love it when they're like, you know what, Miss Nella, like, I think I'm just going to wait. I'm like, and they're like, will you keep a spot open for me? I'm like, absolutely. You have a spot if you need me for, something that happens. But like, to know that you're good and you're feeling good, like, yes, bye. I love it. But I mean, I actually did that with 3 patients this week, to where just maintenance. And one of them is down to once a month. And I'm just like, oh, I just love it. And they're just like, kind of like, should I? What do you think? I'm like, no, the fact that you're thinking that you don't need to come in now every other week is what I want to hear.
If you're with me too long, I'm not doing my job.
Yep.
And I do not want to promote codependency in me. And so I had that happen too this week, where one of my clients said, hey, is it okay if we go to once a month now? Because I feel like I'm good. And I go, that's the whole goal of therapy. I always ask my clients, what is your outcome for therapy? Like, how do you want to feel? And how do you know you feel that way at the end of our course? Because I talk about termination in my first sessions too. Like, how long do you want to come? And I know that depends on if somebody has some deep rooted trauma that's different, and they may be with you, for a while because they may be real clinically depressed or whatever. But just for life's challenges, or, being able to be confident in the decisions that you make, that shouldn't take long. It shouldn't take long at all. So that's good. I definitely agree. When you start to see them, especially them saying to you and you're not saying it to them, hey, I think I'm good. I think I got it. It's great.
Yep.
It's funny because you guys are getting rid of people. I'm starting to get like, oh, you back? It is funny because, of course, we're always like, oh, Dr. Rob, I'm not making new clients. And they're like, hey, you haven't seen this person in a while. I said, listen, I ain't going to see anybody else because, no. But no, I said, absolutely. And so it's so funny whenever they come back and I'm always like, I'm so glad to see you, but I'm really upset. Like, I'm back on my schedule. So it's kind of, but are you okay?
Yeah.
But wow, what's going on? And so, because it is, we love, I love all my, they know, they just, I'm in it. Whatever, let's go. You come back, you're here. How we got this? And then I even get like, oh, you're so important now. Oh, you're going here. Just did down an email today. I said, oh, I gave you 5 dates. Oh, you can't come to those? All right. Well, you think you got VIP status now. I might have it on that. Yeah, I got it on that Thursday. I come in, and I was like, but I love it because, again, you got to meet them where they are. Or have y'all done this when you go? Do you remember the first day you walked in? They go, I do. They go, you want to go back? No.
I do. I take them back there too and be like, especially when they're like struggling through something else.
Right.
I had a client that I had for a couple years on maintenance, but again, a lot of trauma, a lot of history. So I was able to do that once a month with them for a while. And when we talked about like when I finally discharged him, I was like, look about how far you come. I remember the first day with you, and and they're like laughing. Same thing. Like, oh my God, I was such a mess. Oh, that hilarious. Yes. And I'm just like, no, like this shows you, this should show you that you have come a long way and you will be okay.
Yeah.
So
that is so true. I have a client that it's amazing that like clients that you discharged and then maybe a year later, almost a year later, because this is my story, she wants to come back because there's some things that have come up in the last year. But that makes me, as a therapist, that makes me feel really proud that she would choose me again because she could have went somewhere else. Right. So the interventions that we used worked. But now, there's some new challenges. And I always say, anytime we shift to like a different job or something else is going on in our personal life, it's going to it may require a different set of tools. So it's amazing how once you have discharged, here it is almost a year later, they're like, hey, I choose you again. So that's important.
So that's because I know that we're going to have to wrap up here soon because we got to, get that thing handled. But circling back to resilience, there's a little podcast and not a TED talk that I show the first part to my students. And it's a young man that grew up, like Compton area and everything, talk about resilience. And there's always one like statement in there that I don't tell him, but I cut off and I said, okay, what was the one thing that this man said that he's able to be where he is? And of course they're looking and it kind of comes back to what you just said. And he talks about the fact that even though his mom and dad, which were, one was a addict and the other, ended up in jail or whatever, he said, he goes, but here's the thing. He goes, I love my parents and I know they loved me. Connection. Because we are social beings. Right. And the fact that even when, and that's the thing, we build I always call it the foundation. We build such a foundation, such a connection with our clients that of course we're the first ones they're going to call when they come back because we talk when they're not bouncing, when they're rolling, when they're, so they know, all right, TJ, that's my girl. She's going to advocate for me and she's going to tell me about myself. And I know she is sure because I'm struggling, but let me go and like my girls all the time or my, like Rob, they all come in there like, I already know what you're going to say. I go, well, all right, maybe I won't. They're like, no. And then they'll go through everything and I go, yeah, you're not ready. I knew you were going to say that.
I had a couple that I discharged and they both used to say that like throughout like the weeks when I was seeing them is, well, what would Miss Nella say about that? And and I'm just like, oh no, don't make me what's going to make you two argue when I'm there.
Listen, I'm the opposite. I go, throw it at me. I don't throw it at me. Because I said, here's the thing. Because once I know that y'all know, you know, Z know. And then you'd be like, Dr. Robin said this and that.
But the funny thing with that couple that I'm talking about is that the wife, after they're good, like ended up wanting to only come back to me for her own individual stuff later on. So I was willing to do that. And I discharged her as well. And it was funny because she goes, yeah, I think about what you would say to me if I was like, when this happens. And it's like, she would just say, let it happen, let them, or whatever that, and I actually got her to read the Let Them book. So she actually read it. But yeah, I love it because I mean, hey, if I come up in your head like that, that's fine. As long as it helps you get to whatever we're trying to
because
do.
That's the thing we talked about last time. I said the logic limbic. So when they're all in my husband and my kids, and what would Noah say?
Right.
And even with that, I always go, okay, when you're I go, okay, but what are you still missing? What's still going on?
Right.
That you're still struggling with, that you're still, because that's a you thing. That's one of them thing. So, but
well, to wrap up today, I think it was great. Basically, for everybody that is listening or watching, is resilience is something that you're building over time, each day, focusing and, whether it be having some gratitude, whether it would be, focusing on self-awareness, what else could we?
Reaching out to your village,
being empathetic,
giving yourself permission to
yourself,
take a break.
Absolutely.
Yeah, giving yourself permission.
Giving yourself permission to say, you know what, I don't have to have it all.
Right. And stop comparing yourself to others. You are you. You are unique. You are your own individual. And you show up different from others.
And just because you feel like you are weak in the moment, that may be something that you need in order to continue to build resilience, to reach your goals.
You don't get strong by buying a set of weights.
There you go.
You gotta work them.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
there you go.
And at the end of the resilience, real quick, I gotta throw it out here, but by the time this airs, our gators Might just be. No, they're gonna be putting it down.
That's true. That's the elephant in the room today was a little outfit going on.
My little outfit going on. He goes, tomorrow, 6:09, 6:09. That's right. We're playing Final Four Monday night national championship.
Win.
You hope. Listen, my students hope they win because I have them Tuesday morning because they just pray y'all win, pray. But even in that, which is so cool that because the resilience of that little team and not everything else, and that's why I think everybody is. And I'm just like, listen, you talk about just a bunch of little underdogs coming in and nobody really, and they just keep going, wow, they just keep winning. And well, that's just amazing. Well, they just keep winning and win. And I'm right, bros.
Thank you all for listening and tune in for next week.
That's all.